Hi, it's Lauren. So today's video is going to be a lyric analysis of the song My Power Back. So yeah, I did not want to film this today. I was just so overwhelmed to turn on the camera and talk to it. Like I was having passive suicidal ideation because I was just like so overwhelmed, so anxious. Now that I've started though, it's not as bad, which is usually like how things are, but emotionally it was like really, really tough for me to do this. And then there were like sounds that were triggering me. So anyway, we're gonna start. I've got the lyrics right here. So if you've heard the song, the lyrics are dark. Especially the part in the chorus, specifically the line, see your face as you, I want you to suffer, see your face as you watch me laugh. And I want to just like say that this song isn't about like revenge or getting back or saying that that's like what you need to do. It's a song about the shadow parts of yourselves and the feelings you have. And because I do believe in like forgiveness and peace and like letting karma be karma, like not controlling. Like you don't need to. Like I think getting back at people for revenge is just absolutely irrational because why would you want someone else to hurt if you're hurting? However, our feelings aren't always rational, and if you suppress your emotions and your hurt is not under control, which is another line, then those thoughts may creep up and pretending that you don't have them, like forcing forgiveness, all that stuff, you're not going to be able to heal the emotional wound. So line 1, I have these dark thoughts and dark thoughts about like wanting to other person, like not wanting good things for the other person. This song is about a main thing about my ex. The basic general outline of this is that I've had an illness for pretty severe since I was 15. It's labeled under mental illness, but it's one of those things that there are pretty clear physical components that just the medical system doesn't really like know what it is or what to label, so it just ends up being labeled as just all psychiatric. But there are some pretty serious like physical symptoms with it. Are they physical and psychiatric together? Maybe. But all I'm saying is there's a physical component that's undeniable that just doesn't fit neatly into a box. And so because of that, when things don't fit neatly into a box in our medical system, you are constantly and chronically invalidated, maybe diagnosed with personality disorders, which has happened to me. Like anyone who knows me knows I don't have personality disorders, but I've been diagnosed with that because they just didn't know like what it was. So they just assumed that I'm the problem. And for someone who's repressed their emotions and then they're coming up, to then say that you have a personality disorder, that's taking your legitimate anger and weaponizing it against you. So they're basically saying suppress it more because you're the problem. Maybe the person has just been through some tough stuff. And maybe some people have legitimate personality disorders, but I do not. And so they just assume I'm just being dramatic for attention, which is horrible when you have a legitimate medical condition. And basically during these episodes, I would be in incredible amounts of pain, not physical pain, but more like this neurological symptom of it's the best way to describe it is the way that the body reacts when it's under a severe physical shock. Like if someone were to get like a stab wound or a limb cut off, like some kind of severe physical thing, like how would the nervous system react? It's not necessarily a panic attack, but the body is like really dysregulated, sort of like in this state of shock in a way, and that was happening to me. And so it wasn't painful like my arm hurt, it was painful that like The kind of pain that like if someone like took too many drugs or withdrawal or something, and the body just can't adapt, that kind of suffering. And the suffering was very physical, very intense. And my boyfriend at the time I was hiding it from my parents. I had told my mental health professionals. They had seen it. I had been hospitalized, like literally from my psychiatrist's office, I think probably like twice at that point. Just because I'd go into an episode while I was there. And also part of this episode was losing the ability to speak and organize. And there were some like movement things. So it was a whole host of things. But I was hiding it from my parents at the time. And my boyfriend was the only one who had seen these episodes. And the only one to validate me, because some mental health people believe me, but a lot of people just... personality disorder or being dramatic. I had a horrific experience with the Mission Hospital Laguna Beach partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient program. And yes, I am naming them by name. I have a comment on there. It would be wonderful if they just shut that place down. So, couple things that were not cool. It was extremely traumatic. I'm joking, but it was one of the most painful. First of all, in this tone, they'd be like, well, the way you dress. So basically, they told me to my face that they judged me based on the way that I dressed. So they diagnosed me with a personality disorder based on the way that I dressed. And at the time I wasn't working, I was on disability at the time. And they're like, you need to get a job. And it was in those tones. And they said, get a part-time job. So I got a full-time job. I did twice as much as what they asked for. And then my therapist was just like, too soon to be a real change. So what that tells me is that they asked me to do something. They assumed I was going to make an excuse and not do it, but I did it. So even though I did more than what they asked for, he had to twist it so that I didn't accomplish anything, because no matter what I did, their opinion of me there wouldn't change. And the thing is, it's a program. They have a lot of people, maybe 30, 50 people. They have a few initial impressions, and then they don't really like get to know you anymore. Like, I think borderline is I think they were talking about borderline there, and I don't have that. I don't have a fear of abandonment. I'm not gonna like cut my arm and write a note in blood to my lover to take me back. Like, it's anyone who has that, like, I'm not putting anyone down who has that. Like, that's their journey, and I respect that. And I'm sure it's an extremely difficult journey, and I validate them. It's just not what I have. The symptoms just don't match. And it wasn't just me. I know there was someone else, and he was like a drug addict, and he was just telling the therapist in a very humble way, I might add. He's like, oh yeah, these are the improvements I'm making. And in group, the therapist is just like, don't expect to be rewarded for things you should already be doing. Like, sort of in that tone too. And I thought that was super unfair. It's like, that, in my opinion, that would be like, let's say if someone broke their leg, and then their leg is healing, that they can now walk to the refrigerator by themselves and get their own drink. I was going to say coffee, but there's no coffee, iced coffee. That is not the point. The point is, so you're not allowed to celebrate that the person can now walk to the refrigerator and get their own drink and food because they should have been doing that anyway. That's horrible. I mean, people would bully me. Like, because of what the therapist said, the therapist would just allow it. I mean, it was horrific. And I believed them, which is the worst part. I did everything they asked. I believed them. I believed I was the horrible person they told me I was. And when I proved I wasn't, they still cast me as that character. Because they had made their initial judgment and impression, and nothing I did would change. For example, I don't drive because I have a processing disorder. And this is another thing that's not clear, but I do know it's not safe for me to drive. For example, I try to change lanes. I got nervous. I just looked at the time and I'm taking longer than I thought, but I think this is important. I'm just trying to go with the flow, not be so rigid with my planning. So the reason I don't drive is because I try to look and change lanes and I can't really reverse the picture. I can't process what's around me. I have these little like memory gaps. So it's really dangerous for me to drive. And I tried for years to do it. I have like three different permits. And I just realized it's really unsafe for me. We're not exactly sure why. But it's more than just me like not wanting to, but they just assumed I was making excuses and then told me to do it like, because they assume everything I make in it is excuses. And so like they could have easily caused me to kill someone easily because there's something, because they didn't believe me. And the other worst thing is I was also on disability at the time and they said to get a job. And so I got a job, I got a full-time job. And so I lost disability money. And I did this seasonal shift at Nordstrom. And after that season, and I really like, no matter how horrible I felt, no matter what symptoms I had, I just pushed through because they told me that it wasn't real and I was just being dramatic. And after the seasonal, I made it from the seasonal until I believe January, and I was mentally so bad. I couldn't even like do a basic task like organize sunglasses. Like I couldn't organize my thoughts enough to do it. I had a pretty long inpatient hospitalization where I couldn't even I could barely like pick up a spoon or close a drawer because my body would have that episode and go to a state of like shock almost if I tried to pick up a spoon or close a drawer. And the reason I didn't listen to my body, the reason it got that bad, it's because they told me it wasn't real. I was just being dramatic. So after all that happened, and I had the worst, most torturous 2 years of my life after that. So that's a preview for that. And then, excuse me. All right, turn off the refrigerator and turn off the sculpted candles because they were looking a little bit, I don't know, a little bit scary. I don't want to leave them on too long. So, it almost feels like I was about to get, well, I already went through a lot of the traumatic part, but I was about to get to the traumatic part, and then then the refrigerator just started going. I believe in the law of attraction, so it's almost it almost feels like the noise to distract me was almost so I wouldn't, a protective mechanism so my brain wouldn't talk about it. It's almost, but believe that what you will, but I'm very into all that. Law of attraction, crystal grids, little witchcraft here and there, little nice witchcraft. Crystals, I have an obsessive amount of crystals. And this is relevant because the song is about getting your power back. And all these things, whether it's a crystal or or a spell or a manifestation or an intention candle, whatever it is, it has nothing to do with the crystal or the candle. It's all about your thoughts. If you have a certain association with a crystal, the crystal doesn't now go fix your problems. Every time you see the crystal or hold the crystal, you think about your goal and then you create the goal yourself. So these are all tools of getting your power back because unfortunately a lot of the religions are not about having your power. They are about following the rules and doing what you're told, being good or bad. If you're bad, you go to hell. So it's really about taking your power away. But the cool thing is, people with personal power are impossible to control, which is what I want. All right. The refrigerator won't win. I will get to this. So I had this relationship, and my boyfriend the whole time we were together, he was like, this is 100% neurological. I'll come to the neurologist with you, and I'll help you justify, because I was hiding it from my parents at the time, so they didn't even know. Like, they didn't even know how bad it was. And so he was the first person that wasn't a medical professional who validated me. And I had just been through that program where I'd said, oh, it's my fault because I'm like, piece of shit, basically. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but we'll deal with it. Sorry. And so near the end, I think what happened is he was afraid of commitment and was trying to get me to break up with him. But the way he did it was basically telling me the episodes were my fault because I wasn't working hard enough or trying enough, that I was just being dramatic. Just like the program did to me, the one person I trusted did the same thing. And I knew it wasn't true, but I couldn't help but believe it too. And because of that, conflict, it almost completely emotionally unraveled me. So yeah, that's why I had that amount of anger, and that's what the song's about. One of those things like, yes, I believe in forgiveness and moving on, letting the past be the past, and anger towards others only hurts you. I believe all that, but when your hurt and rage isn't under control, you really don't feel that way. And denying that you feel that way will interfere with the healing process. So, we take a pause and then we'll get right into the actual lyrics. All right, so that was just the background story of why my emotions are basically so out of control, that core wound, and now we'll get into the actual lyrics. So, I have these dark thoughts, and dark thoughts by meaning not wanting good things for the other person, wanting them to hurt and suffer, which is against who I am, but it is how I feel. I shared my heart with someone who stabbed me in the dark. So this was not only a long-term intimate relationship, but, my core wound of this illness being my fault and being constantly invalidated, is a core wound. So I shared that with someone, and they were the first person who saw me and then told me, you are that terrible person they told you were. And then looking at you with a superior face, you'll see that I'm right. So yeah, shared my heart with someone who stabbed me in the dark. And stab me in the dark is basically I mean that by the dark portion of yourself. Whew, just got a little judgment thought of myself of the first part. So, self-criticism, self-judgment. So, by dark means the parts of yourselves that aren't illuminated, or the shadow parts of yourselves, those darker parts of yourselves, and sort of weaponizing them against you. More important to save his ego. Yeah, more important how he felt than how I felt. Use my weakness to attack. And when you're in an intimate relationship with someone, you know their vulnerabilities. And so he used my vulnerabilities against me because of his own fear and cowardice of ending the relationship. And then I say, there are rules even in war with a psychological collapse. So like I explained, because of the conflict, I knew what he said wasn't true, but also I believed it. And my brain trying to sort that out, it led to an almost full psychological breakdown. When someone you think you may have loved, I don't know, looks at you like you're completely worthless and basically says that you are, in a way, when you thought he was the only person who believed that you weren't. So I say there are rules even in war with a psychological collapse. So no matter how angry you are at someone, never use their core wound against them. That's one of those things that's off limits at all times, in my opinion. And he did that. And I didn't deserve it, but felt like I did because I was that horrible person. So, you know what? I can't do this right now. All right. I'm having so much trouble finishing this. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm anxious. I was just rambling for a while, so let's just cut all of that out and just start at 40. So, I feel sad, but that's weak. If I learned anything from the world. That's just a commentary on society that we still tend to think of emotions as weak, especially with like a little bit of the patriarchy we still have. You know, emotions are thought of like a weak thing that like women have, and men are only really allowed to express anger and power, and that's pretty much it. And that's one of the main problems with our society, because what happens when you don't feel your emotions and you repress them is they get much stronger. What you resist persists. And then they get so strong you can't manage them anymore. And then society says, suppress them more. Which caused the problem. So now you can't suppress it anymore because they're so powerful, but they say the only option is to suppress it more, but that's what caused the problem. And so that's the trap. It's the rage trap of all this, and it's just really messed up. If I learned anything from the world, don't show you're hurting, people will twist your words. So that's all about having your hurt and your sensitivity weaponized against you by the wrong people. Which is basically what happened. He used my vulnerabilities to get me to break up with him. Not caring about how it would affect me. All right. Next part. I know the right thing is to let it go. By the right thing, it's what I believe. It's in alignment with my values. You know, if you have this rage and anger towards someone, it's only hurting you, right? The classic, what do they call it? I can't think of the saying. You know what I mean. I'm only hurting myself with my anger. But if I'm being honest, my hurt is not under control. So yeah, the hurt is just really big, and I can't really let it go right now. I can't forgive it. And you have to forgive yourself by not being able to forgive right away sometimes. But I do think letting it go and forgiveness is the goal, because you're only hurting yourself, and then if you say something to make the other person hurt, then you're hurting them, and how does that solve the problem? But if you do feel that way temporarily, do validate yourself. Yeah, my hurt is not under control. If it's not under control, you'll feel that strongly. All right, chorus. I believe in the high road, but I don't feel like that. So the high road, meaning like being the bigger person, being kind to someone even if they're not kind to you. But I don't feel like being kind and loving right now to this person. I don't have the emotional capacity to do that. I don't want good things for them, even though I know I should want good things, because why continue the suffering? But I don't feel like that. I want you to suffer. See your face as you watch me laugh. That line is pure evil. It is pure evil, I will say that. And I would never do anything like that to actually do it. But if I'm being honest about how I feel, the rage is so strong and the humiliation so powerful that like, I did want the other person to be in pain, which is like hard because it's so against who I am. But also, like, there are reasons for why I feel that way. A lifetime of hurts, a core wound. And I have to accept that and not force the forgiveness if I just can't, if I have more to process. All right. Reflect your karma back, right? Just to even out the attack. So wanting the other person to feel like I felt, yeah, and then just to even out the attack so that he understands the other side of what he did. And that's another point of this song. Like, when you feel that rage and want the other person to hurt and suffer, what you really want is for the other person to feel the way you did so that they understand what they did. That's what you really want. You want to get your power back. You want to be the one that feels in control. You don't want to be the victim. You want to turn the tables and so you can be the winner. All I really want is my power back. That's what I actually want. I want to feel my personal power back. So all that other stuff is irrelevant. The other person is completely irrelevant. I just want my power back. So these thoughts only hurt me. Like I've said, like having all these rage thoughts, all this revenge, reliving the hurt, it's only hurting me. It's not doing any good for me or the world or anyone. So why am I doing it? Because the hurt is kind of out of control. It makes no sense to keep the pain circling. So like I said, I believe in the high road. If people generally cause suffering because they were suffering themselves, it's basically the cycle of abuse. Like, people are hurt, they have anger, and they turn the tables. Then they're hurt, have anger, turn the tables. And that is the cycle of abuse. The only way to stop it is to not turn the tables. Be like, I was hurt, but I'm not going to bring that hurt onto the next generation. And that's what I mean by it says it makes no sense to keep the pain circling. Okay? I opened up and you attacked. So yeah, I opened myself up to you and you used it for your own selfish reasons and ego. In this one, I gave you respect. Why tell me I am worthless? That line is about, in our relationship, I was sort of usually the initiator. He just never really initiated things. And so I tried to like give him more choice, more respect in the relationship, like let him choose what we do. And it's almost like he used that new power to then like attack me. And I just don't understand. Like, I was trying to give you respect. Why are you treating me horribly? I don't understand where that's coming from. And then there's the chorus again. And so it's the same chorus, but there are some key changes, which I will go through. So I believe in the high road is the same, but I don't feel like that. I want you to suffer. And now this is where the line changes. The first one was, see your face as you watch me laugh. It was that pure evil line. But this one at the end says, so that you can understand. Because by the end of the song, I realize that it's not about the other person suffering or hurting. It's about me wanting to be seen and understood. And then it goes, what you did, who I am. Because I want the other person to understand that they did not do me any favors. They really hurt me. They were treating me unfairly. And then I want them to see the person I actually am, not the person they told me I was and twisted the situation into. Whose power you have. So this is the idea of people almost like, when they have low confidence, almost like taking your confidence and power so they can feel better. But it's not their power, it's yours. They don't deserve it. It doesn't belong to them. It is mine. I am taking it back. So all that power you tried to yield over me, all that power you tried to take from me, it doesn't belong to you. I'm taking it back. And it's your responsibility to develop your own power. You can't take other people's. And I won't allow you to take mine anymore because it doesn't belong to you. And if I take my power back and your confidence lowers because of that, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. I have to respect and love myself enough to not just give my power away to other people. So yeah, I did it. I got through it. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to. I was so overwhelmed. And in the middle, I lost it. I got really disorganized, but I did do it. This is the last video of the first 5 songs. And it's not perfect, but I'll edit it. And I'm going to try to let myself be a little proud of myself because it was so hard for me to turn on this camera. I just was having these just passive suicidal thoughts, and so I did do it. And I'm going to try to just bathe in my accomplishment for a few minutes because it's hard for me to do. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.